Bereshit 32, we're going to start in verse 22 and just read this short passage. I know we've read a lot, but we will. (32:22). Let's see. Actually, 23. He got up that night and took his 2 wives, his 2 handmaids, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of Jabbok. And when he took them, he crossed over the stream, and he sent over his possessions. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him to the break of dawn. When he perceived that Jacob could not overcome, he struck the socket of his hip, so Jacob's hip socket was dislocated as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn has broken." And he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" He replied, "Yaakov." And he said, "No longer is your name Yaakov, but Israel, for you have striven with the divine and with man and have overcome." So like I said, if you've been with us any amount of time and had any doubt or any wonder as to what we were going to talk about today, I cannot let Vaishlach go by without talking about the wrestling, because this is who we are. When we come into covenant, even though we are of the nations, even though you may not be Jewish, you might not be an Israelite, you might not be of the blood, Israelite blood or Hebrew blood, when we come into covenant with God, we become a part of the nation of Israel, if not by heredity, by not physically, certainly spiritually. With that, spiritually, I know that's like some kind of like, ooh, it's mysterious and quacky up there. But with spiritually also should encompass mentally, emotionally, socially. All these things are not separated from each other. And so, as a part of Israel, especially those of us that are following the Torah, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but we really take on the namesake of Israel, the wrestler, right? And I stumbled upon something this week that just really blew my mind. And I thought, wow, it coincides with this parsha fantastically. So I'm titling this, "Worshipping at Mount Stupid." Now you'll see why in a little bit. It's a little bit of a clickbait title. I hope it got somebody's attention. But as it was with Jacob, it is our job, when we enter covenant, when we come to the Torah, when we find Yeshua and he brings us into discipleship, that journey and that experience never should be a certain one. The point of God bringing us to redemption is not certainty. It is security, but not certainty. And those two things are different. By becoming part of Israel, by becoming joined to the Jewish people in worship of their God, being brought by their Messiah, we are being asked and invited to wrestle. When you think of the word Israel, when you think of the name, when you think of the person, when you think of the nation, there's probably a lot of things that pop up in your mind attached to that name. What I want to propose and what I want to get you to think about is that more regularly from now on, when you hear the word Israel in any context, I don't want a picture of the land to pop up in your mind or a picture of a Jewish man with a talit davening or any of that. I want you to picture a wrestling. Because that is what Israel is. That's what Israel's DNA is wrestling. And this is so foreign to us because most of us are trained that our faith should leave us to a lack of wrestling. Our faith walk, our faith journey, studying Scripture, reading the Bible, doing our devotional time, our devos. Oh my God, I gotta do my devo. Doing all of these things should do nothing more than satiate our curiosity and lead us to a place of certainty. And that is the opposite of our patriarch. That is the opposite of the namesake of the kingdom of Hashem. That when you meet with God, when you approach God, when you are introduced to God and you are brought into the kingdom and His covenant, that is where the real struggle begins. How many testimony services have you been in where people say, I was struggling, but God delivered me? Life was such a struggle, but God has delivered me. God delivered me too. God delivered you too, and you too. Is life a field of roses? Is it a field of dandelions where the sound of music is playing and everything's just beautiful? It's a struggle. Life is not the struggle that we want to focus on, though. The struggle is with Hashem. The struggle is with His Word. The struggle is with the experiences and the encounters that we have. And so we are invited, and I would even dare say forced to wrestle. This is searching for truth. In this walk, in this movement, whatever we want to call it, everybody is searching for truth. Ministries called Search for Truth, Passion for Truth, this for truth, that for truth. Everything is about truth, which is great. What does a search for truth include, though? And what does it demand? It demands dealing with knowledge. Now, depending on who I'm talking to and where you come from, in your denomination, knowledge may have been demonized. Oh, because knowledge puffs up. It absolutely does. But no knowledge and all spirit, because that's a dichotomy, right, makes you a flaky quack. I can say that because I were one. We're dealing with knowledge. And when it comes to knowledge and seeking truth, how many of you know there's a lot of stuff out there? When you get on Rabbi Google and you start searching, there's a lot of stuff out there, right? So this process of dealing with knowledge is about understanding what you know, unlearning what you don't need, and then relearning what you do need. Now, I'm going to use some psychology on you this morning. In the past, we've used archaeology, we've used a lot of scholarship, and I don't get much pushback, but I know that there are some people out there that I'd be thinking like, what's the deal with the sciences? Why is this guy? Because in your tradition, maybe the sciences have been demonized as well. But can we, because the way I grew up was that, evolutionary science was trying to disprove the Bible, right? Psychologists and psychiatrists, you didn't go to those if you were a person of faith, right? Because you would let the Spirit deal with you. I hope that we are far enough along and mature enough to understand, and if you're not, it's not meant to offend you, this is just a statement, something for you to chew on, that Hashem created this whole thing. This whole world, this universe, this existence, this reality. And He gave unique ways of understanding it. So all the sciences are psychology, psychiatry, archaeology, geography, linguistics, all the sciences are there someone's way or a group of people's way of understanding the majestic creation that God has given us? Now, are there bad actors in the sciences? Yeah. Are there really crappy pastors in pulpits? Yeah. So, I think we should embrace the sciences in trying to understand this beautiful creation that God made. And you know what? People push back and they say, well, yeah, but the science changes the meaning of the Bible. It's trying to change the meaning of the Bible. You know what I want to suggest to you? Maybe we've had certain meanings of the Bible wrong for a long time. And now science is going, look, that's impossible. Is there a possibility that maybe we could read it a different way and get to an even more profound truth? So, in the learning process, there are 4 different kind of categories, right? There are 4 kind of categories of knowledge. There are what we'll call the known knowns, right? It's stuff that you know that you know. Okay? You got that stuff in your head? Then there's the known unknowns. There's things you know that you don't know, right? Then there's the unknown knowns. Unknown knowns are really interesting. There's stuff that you knew that you forgot you knew. Like if you moved away from where you grew up, I could probably take you back there and you could probably take me all over and show me different places and but you don't think about that stuff every day. You don't know that you know that. It's back there in the background somewhere. Then number 4, there are unknown unknowns. And that's the scary one. So I want to read a couple of quotes from you from an English philosopher named Bertrand Russell. After finding out about this guy, I really like him. He says, the whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wiser people so full of doubt. He also said, I think this is fantastic. A stupid man's report. Now, when we talk about stupid, nobody get offended. There's a difference between stupid and ignorant, right? Ignorance is, I know I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. We're all ignorant. Stupid is, no, I know I don't know, and I'm just fine being that way. He says a stupid man's report of what a clever man says can never be accurate because he, the stupid man, unconsciously translate what he hears into something he can understand. I'm going to read it again just because I think it's fun. A stupid man's report of what a clever man says can never be accurate because he unconsciously translate what he hears into something he can understand. An idiot thinks he knows everything because he literally doesn't have enough knowledge to know better. Meanwhile, the expert thinks that he knows nothing because he's so aware of all the ways in which he may be wrong. So what is this all about, Joe? What is this about? Well, as some of you may have experienced in this walk, in this movement, in our faith walk, we have a lot of loud voices. There's a lot of loud voices. And you may say, well, you're one of those. Maybe so. By the end of this, I hope you'll see that differently. There are a lot of pitfalls when you're going through this walk, when you're entering this walk. And there is this group of know-it-alls everywhere you look. Now, if let me just kind of caveat this. If you're just a person that kind of like, you came from Sunday church, and then you're just like, now this is just like Saturday church, and you're not really like engaged in study, like you get it, the Torah, this thing, yes, everything's cool, like you understand, and you're just going with the flow, that's fine. This is probably not going to land for you, okay, and I understand that. But if you're a person who is militant, like me, and Brady, and some of you others I could point out, and you wanted to take this thing apart down to its elemental like foundation in order to understand what you believe, then this should really land for you. There's experts everywhere. Experts abound. Know-it-alls abound in this walk. Here's some examples. There is a whole group of people that we've picked on a lot. Not really picked on. We mention them every once in a while. Whole group of people that literally believe the earth is flat. Literally. Now, cool. I understand why you believe that. I've done the study. I know the research. I know the statistics. I get it. I understand why you think that, okay? There's a whole group of people. Oh, by the way, these people that have done this research are not astrophysicists. They're not, they're not those people. There are people that translate the Hebrew Bible that are not Hebrew experts. We have Hebrew experts. These are not those people. But what's really odd about the way our world works today is that the non-astrophysicist has a large following of people that they are convincing that the earth is flat. But they've not done any study, they've not had any training in elemental sciences or any of that kind of stuff. The person who translates Hebrew on a YouTube channel, who doesn't speak or read the language but translates and gives you theology out of it, has a huge following, and professors and scholars at the university level, nobody ever knows who they are. And this is a cancer that is, well, I was going to say is going to ruin. It has ruined this movement. There's this thing in psychology called metacognition. It's a big word. Metacognition. It's basically a really fancy, sciencey word for saying something that I tell you to do all the time. Think about what you're thinking about. Think about how you're thinking about things. There's a whole area of study devoted to metacognition. The definition of it, the Merriam-Webster definition, is an awareness and understanding of one's own thought process. We could just stay there. The question is, do you, in your wrestling to find truth, in your wrestling to find God, in your wrestling to find God's will and God's path for your life, do you even know how you think? Do you even know yourself well enough to know your own biases and your own blind spots in the process? You say, well, this doesn't have anything to do with the Bible. No, it kind of has everything to do with the Bible. Because if the Bible for us, the Word of God, is the source of all truth and the source of our lives, how we learn it, how we read it, how we wrestle with it should matter to every single one of us. And if you have a blind spot or if you're skewed in a way and you don't realize it, it could change the trajectory of your whole path. A blatant example of this is where you hurt, where you have bitterness, where you have jealousy, where you have distrust, mistrust, where you have confidence issues in other people, in other sources, in leadership, whatever. Those things are going to massively skew how you understand and read and accept and process and wrestle with the text. Some people hate the Apostle Paul. What did the Apostle Paul ever do to you? But see, because of your background, the way you feel like you've been lied to in the churches you've been in, all this stuff, now you got it out for Paul. So we just quit reading Paul altogether. There is a known and studied phenomenon that when a person's lack of knowledge and skills in a certain area cause them to overestimate their own competence. This is awesome. By contrast, this effect also causes those who excel in a given area or are experts in a given area to think the task that they are so good at is simple for everybody. So there's this weird dichotomy in this phenomenon. So you got people who don't know anything or just starting to learn a new subject. They think they know everything about it. They're super confident in their knowledge. Then you got other people who are experts who are very sheepish and shy about sharing what they know. Or they don't because they think just like everybody gets it. For years, people, and I've tried to do music. Now, this is not to say I'm an expert. This is just an example. People want me to teach music. Can you teach my kid guitar? No, I can't. Well, why not? Because they don't just get it. And music is one little thing that I just get. I hear something, I can play it. You can't do that? I can't show you, sorry. There's no interface there for me, right? On the other hand, I have from this platform and from other places talked out of the side of my behind about stuff that I was just learning that I thought I was an expert on. This phenomenon is called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. It's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. Most of you may have heard of this. I didn't know this was a thing until this week. And I'm fascinated by it. I'm down like a whole rabbit hole. Because this speaks to the way that we process Torah and the way we are dealing with the information that we are coming across. Listen, some people own an Et Sefer Bible. And if you own an Et Sefer Bible and this offends you, good, you need to be offended. What does that mean? Well, in Hebrew, there's this two-letter word. Et. How do you spell it? You spell it Aleph Tav, right? Aleph Tav. Well, what is Aleph and Tav? Does anybody know? It's the first and last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The first letter is Aleph, the last letter is Tav. No, it doesn't end with Z or Zed like us. The Aleph and the Tav. This word is all over the Tanakh in Hebrew, all over the place. But it's not translated in our English Bibles. So, some guy decided he was going to do some research. And Yeshua says of himself, in the vision to John in the book of Revelation, I am the Alpha and Omega, right? Now, I don't know Greek. What is Alpha and Omega? Oh, it's the first and last letter of the Greek alphabet, right? I'm the Alpha and Omega. But according to this guy, Yeshua wouldn't have been speaking Greek to John. He would have been speaking Hebrew because Yeshua is Jewish, John's Jewish. So he wouldn't have said Alpha and Omega. He would have said, I am the Aleph and the Tav. Hot diggity dog. So therefore, in the Hebrew text, every time you have this word et, it's Yeshua. And here's the problem with that. That doesn't make any freaking sense. Sorry. Because the et, the two-letter word in Hebrew, et, is grammatical in Hebrew. It has a function. It follows in a word order, and it points to, so Hebrew is verb-oriented, right? So if you say, I took the book, right? Say, Joe took the book. In Hebrew, it would read something like, took Joe et book. The et is telling you what is being acted upon. It's pointing to a direct object. It's a direct object marker. It's a grammar thing. And listen, I'm not mad at this guy for coming up with his own translation. Anybody's free to do that. But there's a theology and a doctrine wrapped up in that is not in the Hebrew Bible. So this is what happens. People that don't know much about a subject and don't have the skills and the knowledge to spot their own mistakes are knowledge gaps. Because they have these blind spots, they can't see where they're going wrong, and therefore they assume they're going the right way. See, it's dangerous whenever you start to learn something new and you don't know what you don't know. On the contrary, people who are at the top of their game in a certain subject area don't have the ability to notice their specialty because their work comes so naturally to them, they don't realize that it's not this way for everyone. The ease which they pick up these skills or knowledge area blinds them to the fact that the work is more challenging for others. Rather than underestimating themselves, they overestimate everybody else's own abilities to match theirs. You all have this. You all have this dichotomy within you. You all are really good at something and you think everybody else understands it like you do. We don't. So basically this Dunning-Kruger thing, you can do a bunch of research on it. I would invite you to. I think it's fascinating. Dunning-Kruger, David Dunning and Justin Kruger were two researchers at Cornell University. This study came out in 1999. It's not that old. And what they did is basically they took a bunch of college students and they said, okay, we're going to test you on this subject matter. How well do you think you're going to do? And an overall percentage of them said that we're going to kill this. We're going to do great. Most of them failed. The other part of the group said, well, I don't know. We'll see. That part of the group that didn't think they would do that well, which is the minority, they knocked it out of the park. And so there's been these follow-up studies that kind of that reinforce this, and it's fascinating in light of what we're talking about. So for those of you who get upset when I use too much science, hold on to your seats because I'm really going to hack you off. As I quote one of Christianity's major enemies, Mr. Charles Darwin. He said, ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. So this Dunning-Kruger effect, it has been charted, and this is where the title of our message comes from. So I want to show you. It's going to be on the screen for those of you guys online and those of you in here, but if you can't see it on the screen, I want to draw it just so that maybe this is a little bit easier to see. So this is what the chart looks like. So here you have confidence. Okay? And here you have competence. Confidence and competence, right? Of course, regular graph. So here you have a low confidence, high confidence, right? Here, confidence, you know nothing, and you're kind of a guru. So that's the way that the chart works, okay? The Dunning-Kruger effect looks like this when it's charted. Okay? So, in the beginning, whenever you know nothing, right? Your confidence is super high. And this is just a phenomenon that's been observed. Your confidence is super high. As you start to become more competent in something, your confidence falls like a free fall. Have you experienced this?
The peak is second year of following Hebrew stuff.
Yeah, right.
That's year two.
The peak right here is like, year 2 of walking Torah.
Yeah.
Or for some, like 6 months. They're accelerated students. Right? Where you're so stinking annoying at your confidence. But look how much your competence. Here. There comes the sad thing is that for many people in our walk, this part never comes. This fall never happens. But this fall needs to happen. We have to come to a threshold where we go, oh my God, I don't know anything. If you have had that epiphany, congratulations. You are normal. If you haven't had that epiphany, wait, it's coming. Or if you've been studying Torah for more than 3 or 4 or 5 years and you haven't come to this yet, you're a narcissist.
Find some smarter friends.
Yeah, find some smarter friends. And we'll get into that in a little bit. I got like 7 minutes to get through 6 pages of notes. So this is called Mount Stupid. See where the title comes from? See, there's a reason for all of this. See? This is called Mount Stupid in the world of talking about this. This is called the Valley of Despair.
That's so lonely.
Right? Because what happens? you're super confident about all the truth you know about how Christmas is pagan. And grandma's going to hell for eating a ham sandwich. That's where this is. And the earth is flat. Those heliocentrists got us all duped, right? And all the, his name is Yahashawasha Shamalama Ding Dong, whatever. And if you don't say it that way, you're not getting into heaven. And that's worshiping on Mount Stupid. Then if you cross this break, you begin this free fall into, I don't know what anything means. And it becomes a time of despair. But if you can push through this time of despair, this is called the slope of enlightenment. And what's cool about this is, look, this is so cool in how we learn. I hope this is encouraging to you. I'm not just nerding out for my own good. Look, this really skyrocket. Boom. Whenever you first come into Torah, most of us go through this thing called sponge mode. Most of you did this, where you just any teacher, anything, you just give me all of it, right? And so you have this boom, meteoric rise in knowledge, right? But you have an equally quick fall, hopefully. How many of you know that if you have some weight to lose, losing 60 pounds in a month, not super healthy. Not the way you want to do it, right? You don't want to lose 10 pounds a week. That's not healthy. Experts, again, I know those people we hate, they tell us about a pound and a half in a week is good and sustainable. So in the same way our knowledge happens, you have this boom, I'm just learning everything. And I love talking to new people because I'm like, well, what are you learning? Well, I listen to 17 podcasts a day and I have 42 YouTube videos and I'm part of 17 Torah groups and I'm this and that. And it's just what? So what are you actually learning? Nothing. But look at this, the slope of enlightenment. Enlightenment doesn't happen in a meteoric rise. Enlightenment happens slow and steady if we do it right. And then this last part is called the plateau of sustainability. That's where we want to be. This is where we want to be. We want to be in the plateau of sustainability. High confidence, I know what I know. I know there's things that I don't know. But I'm competent, right? So, this is phenomenally important for where we are as we wrestle. Understand that you're wrestling, although it is spiritual, and it is spiritual, all of this is spiritual, but you're wrestling, this is a way of explaining some of the spiritual and intellectual battles we go through, and everybody goes through this. Whether you're a tradesperson, and Ron has worked with tradespeople before, young kids that come on the job that think they can tell you how to do it all, right? Yeah. Now here's the thing. What happens on the mountaintop? What happens on the mountaintop in Scripture? It's where God's meet with people, right? It's where you meet with God. Oh boy, this is so good. So here on Mount Stupid, who's God? Oh. See? Boy, psychology. Gotta love it, man. Because it just kicks you in the pants. People who are worshiping at Mount Stupid, and let me, just to beat the dead horse, what do I mean by worship at Mount Stupid? I mean, what causes somebody to stay worshiping at Mount Stupid? We're going to talk about that in a minute. But this is idolatry. You're meeting with a God who you have formed into your image. That's what an idol is. This is not truth. This is where the Bible says knowledge puffs up. So worshiping on Mount Stupid is idolatry. You're welcome. Jeremiah 5 says, "Hear this, you foolish people who have no understanding. You have eyes but do not see. You have ears but do not hear." You ever tried to talk to somebody that's worshiping on Mount Stupid? No, you don't get to talk when you're dealing with somebody that's worshiping on Mount Stupid. That's the whole point. All you get to do is sit there and listen. Jeremiah 10:8, "Though they are totally stupid and foolish, discipline is useless." Does that characterize people that are living on Mount Stupid? Psalm 92 says, "A brutish man does not know, nor does a fool understand." See, for most of you that have, not even in the Torah world, but just in life in general, you've been through this cycle. We all have. Again, yeah, over. And that's the other thing, is that this is not linear. This is cyclical, like everything else. You think like, "Oh man, I'm glad I'm through that season." Don't worry, you'll be back in it again in some other point. Kyle was talking about how he's taking a geology class, biblical geology, and he's like, "I feel again like this is the key to everything," right? So like he's somewhere on this spectrum, right? It's just, but the more we learn about how we learn, the more we learn metacognition, the more we can understand ourselves, and we can do this. Most of you know that the difference between this and this, the main difference is understanding. You ever wonder why the Bible talks about knowledge and understanding? Because this is pure knowledge. This is understanding, what we would call wisdom. Right? Yeah, application, wisdom. Isn't this good? Proverbs 8:5 says, "O naive ones, learn prudence." Okay, learn prudence, fools gain understanding. So I thought, prudence, yeah. No idea what that word means. So I went over to the dictionary. You know what prudence means? Caution. Caution. How many of you that have circled in this Hebrew roots world, how many of you know people who are cautious about what they're saying they believe, about what they're saying is truth? Not cautious, bold. I'm going to speak the truth, and I'm going to plant those seeds, and by God. There's a whole litany of other verses we could read. Oscar Wilde said, I love this, he said, "I am not young enough to know everything." I'm not young enough to know everything. I love that. So this has some really incredible effects. We're going to go just a few minutes long. I'm sorry. This has some individual and some systemic effects. So individual on us personally, and then on our movement, on our congregations as a whole. Number one, individually, you become an obnoxious and overconfident. You become asinine with no real knowledge. That's really hard words. Sorry, this is really important. This is really important. Because one of the other parts of the Dunning-Kruger effect is that the people who know the least, usually are the loudest. So somebody who comes to visit the congregation, none of you are here. I know them. They're not here anymore. See how that works? People come to visit, and you know what they want to do? They want, "Can I talk to you after? I need to talk to you after service. I need to talk to you after service. Make sure we get to chat. We need to meet. We need whatever." And all they want to do is tell me what I believe. But they want to tell me their version and why it's right of what I believe, and why what I believe is not right. Well, you know those Jews, you know those rabbis, you talk about them all the time, but you know the history there, right? And they're so condescending and disrespectful. I said last week, I think it was last week, most of you would not talk to your Sunday pastor the way that you talk to most teachers in this movement. You wouldn't do it. And while that can be unhealthy as well, there's some modicum of respect that we've lost. So the people that know the least are the loudest. That's provable by science. So you become obnoxious. Number 2, you have a self-deceit. You are deceiving yourself of your certainty, or by your certainty, or your proposed certainty. There's a whole book Pete Enns, biblical scholar Pete Enns wrote called The Sin of Certainty. Don't read it unless you're ready to have your world fall down around you. But it's fantastic. Number 3, you have the inability to grow personally. You can't grow. Where do you grow to when you got everything right? What else do you learn when you know everything, right, Travis? I mean, Travis understands. I mean, right? Yeah. Number 4, it individually is detrimental because, like we said, it's idolatry. It's idolatry. Number 5, you develop a lack of confidence in true knowledge. Whenever you are all about false knowledge, or not even misinformation, fake news, but when you're about surface level knowledge, I'll say it like that, and you think that you've hit the holy grail because you've dug a half-inch deep, and you're like, this is the answer to everything. You've only dug a half-inch deep. You tend to get resentful, or you lack confidence in true knowledge. How does this work? Well, and this is going to fall into the systemic ways this works as well. Do y'all mind if I go a little long? I don't care. I got to finish this. Go eat if you want to. But we like this surface level knowledge, and we think that the real experts don't know what they're talking about. Well, I found this great truth in the Aleph Tav, and it's revolutionized my world. I don't want some Jewish Hebrew scholar that knows all the grammar to come and steal my truth. You see, that's how that works. We lack confidence in the experts. Well, don't you know about the global cabal and that the moon landing was faked and we know where the studio was and blah, 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 blah. This proves that the Bible teaches flat earth. No, I've said it before. The Bible assumes, or what is the word we use? Assumes a flat earth. It does not teach one. What does that mean? That means that the people that the Bible was written to thought the earth was flat. Well, don't you know about the... Yeah, I know. Yeah, I get it. And see this lack of confidence in actual, real expertise. Right? I could wire my own house. For the safety of my family, I'd rather let my father-in-law, who is an expert, do it. Right? We understand that. But when it comes to the most important thing to us, our faith life and our spiritual walk, we'll just listen to any freaking person with a YouTube channel. Why? Why? Next, this causes missed opportunities. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I know of people that have been in this walk 15, 20, 25 years. They have not grown one iota since the first 2 years of their growth. Because they came in, they found a way to pronounce the name, they found a calendar they liked, they found a shape of the earth they like, they found a whatever that they like, and that's it. And the whole rest of their walk has been defending that belief. So let's talk about systemic or communal effects. As a society or as a community, we miss learning from the best of the best. Because their confidence keeps them behind closed doors. How many of you, the more you learn about the Torah and about the Bible, how many of you have become more quiet the more you learn? The more I learn, the quieter I become. Even as the pastor, people ask me questions and I'm like, no, I really don't want to talk about that. Because I don't have 3 or 4 or 5 months to bring you along the process that I've been through, right? And you can't do it in 30 seconds. Like, let me walk you to the car and let's talk about the deity of Messiah. You can't do that. This is something that's been debated and talked about for thousands of years. We're going to solve it on a walk to the car? And our parking lot's not big. Right? Yeah. So it keeps the experts behind closed doors because they just, there's assumptions that they make. And I love this. It says, at center stage, all too often can be people of below average capabilities. The spotlight is on the people who are below average. I'm not trying to shame anybody. I'm saying this is part of the process. Realize where you are, okay? This can also, as a community, this can also affect us as we begin to idolize people. Well, we follow this rabbi, or we follow this pastor, or we follow this author, or this whatever, or even scholar. I'll pick on some of my academic friends. We follow this scholar because they've got the keys to everything, right? Well, but what do you think about it? Well, I think whatever they think. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Lastly, instead of growing into an opening, welcoming community, worshiping at Mount Stupid keeps us closed off and makes us more cultish. Right? Right? It makes us closed off because we have the truths we know everything, right? So, real quick, and I'm going to finish up. How to avoid or how to navigate this cycle. Because this is a natural phenomenon, right? It is going to happen. We can navigate it. We can make its effects a little less prominent. And I'm going to contradict something that I've said over and over and over. I think the number one way that you navigate this, we say all the time in church, like, oh, it's like a sin to compare yourself to others. I'm going to say no, the solution to this is compare yourself to others. What do I mean by that? I don't mean like as in a contest. I mean be observant and be introspective. This is what I love about oneg. Oneg, you guys didn't know it, but oneg in a way is a way to combat the Dunning-Kruger effect. Because you're having conversations and you're actually listening to each other. You're listening to different understandings. You're listening to different experiences. And so the number one way that we can navigate Dunning-Kruger is to listen to other people and think, what do I think about that? Why do they think that? And how does that push up against what I think? It's this self-analysis that I'm always talking about. Think about how you think. This is the reason why I'm exposing you to stuff like the Siddur and all these Jewish writing stuff is always what I tell you. It's not what to think, it's how to think. So, compare yourself to others. Listen, be introspective, and be observant of what's going on around you. Number 2, always second guess yourself. This is like the top 3 for self-esteem. This goes against all the self-esteem things. The problem is, this is not about self-esteem. This is about false self-esteem. This is about false confidence. But we don't want that. So whatever we got to do to bludgeon that thing down, we got to do it. So compare yourselves to others. Number 2, always second guess yourself. Always assume that there's something that you don't know. Always assume that there's more you can learn. You can avoid being ignorant of your own performance by listening and gaining insight from the performance of others. If somebody does something better than you, don't get mad. Learn. Number 3, simply knowing that this is a thing hopefully will help you to mitigate its effects. Remember that thinking that you're bad at something likely puts you in the middle of the pack. If you think, oh, I'm not very good at that. And I know for some reason I attract a lot of people like me, and a lot of you have this issue. Oh, I'm not good at anything. That means you're more competent than you think. Remember, new levels, new devils. Also remember that if you think you're exceptional at something, you likely have a lot of learning to do. It's just part of it. Number 4, be open to feedback, which of course is easier said than done. Low performers, these people, consistently do not receive criticism well and are chronically disinterested in self-improvement. Wait, I thought that's what this whole thing was about, was that we were supposed to be drawing closer to God and becoming holy. Yeah, I thought so too. But notice, usually in the people that are the loudest and the most obnoxious, they're neither growing closer to God nor becoming more image-bearing. Rather than brushing off feedback and constructive criticism, attribute the critique to your lack of knowledge and use it mindfully to move yourself forward. But that's so hard. Yeah, but we're adults. Get over it. There's a time when we have to grow up and start learning that children whine when they don't get their way or when they're offended. Adults should not whine and be offended when they don't get their way. That's ridiculous. You're an adult. Grow up. And I said something the other day, and I'll close with this. I said something I got a little bit of heat on a couple weeks ago. I said, heal and let's move on. And when I said it, I thought, oh boy. Well, don't you know what I've dealt with and what I've been through? I'm not saying everybody's going to heal at the same rate. I'm not going to say some people don't have it harder. I'm not going to say that some things maybe you don't ever heal from. Some of you have experienced some loss and some tragedy that you'll never heal from. The point is you don't live there. You understand it as a part of your life. You learn what you can from it, and you do your best to move on, however incrementally that needs to be. Right? All right. So now you came and you got Bible and you got a psychological lecture. Here, I'll don't be so consumed with knowledge and the necessity to get it right that you're found guilty on worshiping on Mount Stupid. And I'll finish up with this quote. This is not attributed to anyone, it's anonymous. When arguing with a fool, first make sure that the other person isn't doing the same thing.